The NHL is absolutely terrified of Mathew Schaefer and what he can become. After an incredible rookie season where he won the Calder Trophy, it really felt like Mathew Schaefer, with him, it's more of a matter of when he becomes one of the best defensemen in the entire game as opposed to if. And considering this is 1 year after his draft year, he still has not turned 19 years old. This is incredibly impressive. But now, NHL Network put up their top 20 defenseman lists this year, as they do annually, and Schaefer is honestly a lot higher. Well, I would say a lot higher. He's a little higher than I expected. I think all Islander fans are going to be really excited about this. On this episode of Islanders Digest, we're going to talk about where he currently ranks among NHL defensemen, what he has to do next season to take the next steps in his development, and overall talk about what I think makes a good defenseman, and just talk about these rankings, because while I think the Mathew Schaefer one, while maybe a bit higher than I would have put him, makes a lot of sense, there are some on here that are really wonky, and I think it's time for people to really evaluate what makes a good defenseman, especially in the offseason, especially when, as the Islanders fans, we're talking about, even though Mathew Schaefer is an incredible, I'll say, generational defenseman, they still have to put together the rest of this defensive core, and likely there might be some trades coming eventually, or just draft picks to kind of fill out, especially that right side, and also be watching the development of Malte Gus. I think it's good to talk about what makes these guys so valuable, and sometimes what makes them overrated, because some of these guys are a bit overrated. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I understand summer content isn't the same as regular season content, but I'm going to keep on putting videos out this summer, and I cannot wait to talk about training camp with this New York Islanders team. But let's jump right into these rankings from NHL Network for the top 20 defensemen. And I don't think there are a ton of surprises here in the top 4, at least. I'll start there. Starting with Cale Makar, number 1. I would honestly maybe put Quinn Hughes number 1 with just how dominant he was last season. Because really, when it comes to ranking these defensemen, I think you have to do it by especially the recent body of work. You can go back a few years. You can't go back too far. It has to be based on what they can currently do. And that's kind of where I do think Schaefer is a little high. I think he will be by the end of the season, will no doubt be in this top 5. For now, I put him a little lower. But before, I actually kind of want to discuss why I think Quinn Hughes is the best defenseman in the game right now. And it just comes down to how much he dominates every possession. When he is on the ice, the Minnesota Wild are absolutely in control. Even though they don't have the deepest center core, they have some flaws in that forward core. It doesn't matter when you have Quinn Hughes. He is that good of a defenseman. And while Cale Makar does have the same traits, he definitely scores more goals. I just think Quinn Hughes really dominated these past few seasons in a way that we just really have not seen in a while. But after that, Cale Makar, Zach Werenski, Rasmus Dahlin, take your pick. All incredibly elite defensemen, and this is kind of where I see Schaefer being at the end of next season. I don't think he's there yet, and as this video goes on, we'll talk a little bit more about what I think he needs to do to get there. The first surprise for me was Miro Heiskanen. I don't hate him at number 5, but I do think two defensemen who are severely getting not enough credit on this list. First of all, Evan Bouchard was incredible offensively. People will always say he's a McDavid merchant, he's a Draisaitl merchant. I completely disagree. And while you can make fun of some of the issues he has in terms of blatant turnovers and just really bad looking plays, when you look at the overwhelming body of work, it shows while that does happen, it's not frequent, and he's still actually a very good defensive defenseman, which he unfortunately does not get credit for. I know 0 Edmonton Oilers fans watch this channel, except when I make my crazy videos about the Islanders potentially getting Connor McDavid one day, but I think Evan Bouchard should be in the top 5 of this list for the offense alone. And yeah, you might want to criticize, he has some of those mistakes here and there, but he's also proven that he can bring that offense in the playoffs. And when you compare his numbers to some of the other top guys in the playoffs, Really, he's on another level. And I understand he has a lot of talent around him, but we've seen with teams before, just having talent around you does not necessarily make you a talented player. I think Lane Hudson at number 6 makes a ton of sense. And when you look at Lane Hudson, it kind of shows what I kind of want to see Schaefer do next season in terms of just taking more responsibility. And like Lane Hudson, that's not necessarily going to mean more ice time, because in Lane Hudson's rookie season, he had a ton of ice time, but we saw last season that he got more trust defensively, that he did some more work on the penalty kill. And that really wasn't his main focus, but he got more time playing against other teams' top players. And for Schaefer, I think that is the next step, and that's why I have him a bit lower than a few other guys. Another guy I do have to note is definitely, in my opinion, at this point, and that's the key, at this point, and to be fair, a lot of these guys are in their prime, and Schaefer is still hasn't turned 19, as we discussed at the start of this video. Moritz Seider is perhaps the most underrated defenseman in the NHL. If I had a Norris vote, I honestly might have given it to him. He was so perfect defensively, and also in past years, he just did not put up that offensive consideration. This year, he actually had 63 points. So why he didn't get as much consideration as he should have, I don't really know. Moritz Seider, it seems like, will always get underrated until the Detroit Red Wings are not an absolute trash can on the ice. In fact, I would actually argue they were as good as they were last season because of Moritz Seider. And when it comes to potentially bottoming out, Moritz Seider is a huge roadblock for them. But yeah, I think it's a really close. I definitely think Schaefer is in the same tier of some of these guys, but if it were up to me, I would actually put him 11th. I know that is going to be controversial, especially on Islander channel. Nothing against Mathew Schaefer. This is all about, and the thing about him is, it's so encouraging, is the stuff he has to do is so simple. We're talking about just more defensive trust, and that's going to come with a year of experience in the NHL. Last year, we saw some mistakes in the defensive zone. What was incredible was he was able to make up for them with his speed, but if he can get better gaps and continue to improve on just his defensive positioning, that'll be huge. More penalty kill time, that just comes with, taking the training wheels off, if you can even say there were training wheels on. I definitely wouldn't say that was the case, but just more equal deployment on a 5-on-5, playing against more high impact competition. Not that he didn't do that, but just more of that, like the way we see these more Seider. He basically plays the majority of his 5-on-5 against the other team's top players. And then the one other thing you just want to see with Mathew Schaefer is a bit more bulking up, so he can kind of play more of a physical role. I have no doubt that's going to happen. Again, I truly believe by the end of the season, he can hit as high as 3 on this list, and then from beyond there, I think there's a really good chance he becomes the number 1 defenseman in the NHL in the future. But right now, I would have him at 11. And one of the defensemen I probably would have over him is Jake Sanderson. Jake Sanderson, I think, is another guy who just does not get enough credit. He was very good offensively as well. And my thing with some of these guys is they have a higher defensive workload. And it's hard for me to put Mathew Schaefer ahead of them before we see him take that higher defensive workload. Not that he can't do it. And I don't think this is a thing where he's going to have to struggle throughout the year to get to that point. It's just we haven't seen it from him while we've seen it with some of these other players. And yes, they've played 4 or 5 more years. They're in their prime while he's just entering it. But going to the second half of this list to kind of move on about what makes a good defenseman, this is where I think this list gets kind of crazy, and I think there are a lot of questionable choice here. Charlie McAvoy, I really like him as a defenseman. This is the type of defenseman, maybe on the right side, but the Islanders absolutely should be looking for. I take that back. He plays the right side. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm actually second guessing that now. But Charlie McAvoy is a great defenseman, but I don't think he should be 11 or really that close to 11. The workload, especially offensively, it just has not been there. And honestly, I think the defense has kind of taken a step back. And I understand he's dealt with a lot of injuries, but that's just where I'm at with that player right now. Jacob Slavin is a defenseman I absolutely love. I think he is an Adam Pelech on another level. But because he doesn't really provide that offense, I understand the defense is incredibly important. And that's why a lot of players do get docked on these lists. I do think he should be lower. Looking at Adam Fox 13, I think this is the worst ranking on the list. When you watch Adam Fox, because I watch a lot of Rangers games on MSG when the Islanders aren't playing, he doesn't have that explosiveness that a lot of these players have. And as a result, people just assume that he's not as good. He's one of the smartest defensemen in the entire league. He's always in the right position. You look at his defense, it might not be the most physically aggressive or impressive looking defense, but it's some of the best analytical defense in the entire game. He basically puts up a point per game on a Rangers offense is always a bit questionable. I think he should absolutely be in the top 10. I think by month 2 of the season, Schaefer will surpass him. But at this point, I don't see how you can have Adam Fox this low. As a player who has won the Norris Trophy, Brock Faber, honestly, it's stunning that he's even on this list. He hasn't, since his rookie season, has not been that elite defenseman that everyone thought he would be. You add on the fact that he's getting a lot of help playing with Quinn Hughes. While I think Brock Faber is a great defenseman, and I would love him on the New York Islanders because that right side is an absolute mess, I just think this placement is too high. Roman Josi, I also think, has a placement that is too high just because at his age, he's not playing the same caliber defense as he has in the past. And in addition, the offense has definitely taken a step back. He's still a very good defenseman. I probably would have him still in this top 20, but we're talking closer to 20. Josh Morrissey, I think, should be higher. An incredible defenseman. If you have not watched him play, I highly recommend you spend some time watching Josh Morrissey. He's a really exciting player to watch. Jackson Lacombe, we saw in the playoffs him truly break out. I would also maybe put him higher on this list, just trying to rattle these off a little quicker here. Victor Hedman, I'm going to say it, doesn't belong on a top 20 list for the NHL anymore. He really doesn't belong on the top 50 list. I understand what he's done in the past. I think he is an incredible player. I still think he has a lot more in the tank, but it's more as a guy taking a step back and playing a lesser role. I don't see this guy as a top 20 defenseman in the NHL anymore. I don't think he's been there for a few years at this point, if I'm being honest. I think that's a big reason why Tampa has not been able to be the same team in the playoffs. Let me know what you think about that take, because I think it is a bit of a hot one. Shea Theodore, I'm actually go ahead. I don't even think he's the best defenseman on the Vegas Golden Knights. I think McNabb is a better player. I'd love to know what you think about that one. This is where I think, well, I don't think the guys who don't produce a ton of offense should be in like the top 15. This is where I'd like to put some of my Jacob Slavin type players. And I think a player like McNabb, while it doesn't belong in this list, I think deserves a lot more credit than a Shea Theodore, who doesn't have that explosive offense. There's offense there, but it's not super explosive. And he doesn't also have that defensive side of his game. Finally, it has Devon Toews on this list at 20. Devon Toews is another player where I think in his prime absolutely was a top 20 defenseman. I no longer think he's quite at that level. And this is not me being a salty Islanders fan. This is more me just watching him play last season and seeing in particular how much he struggles without Cale Makar, right? For you to be a top 20 defenseman in the NHL, I view you as a guy, you have to be able to play with any player. And like Brock Faber, the numbers take a step back when Devon Toews is not playing with Cale Makar. But those are my thoughts on the top 20 defenseman list and my thoughts on where Schaefer will be. Some notes on what I think he can work on going into the season. Really, it's all about just getting more comfortable with the positioning and adding a few more pounds of muscle. I assume that's going to happen, and I expect Schaefer to have an absolutely electric season. Me saying he belongs more in the 11-12 range is not me doubting him in any way, shape, or form, but if you want to disagree with me, I personally hope you're right and definitely expect you to be right by the time we get to the halfway point of the season. I just feel when it comes to these lists, you can't project what a player is going to be. It has to be just based on what you've already seen. And I don't think I'm ready to put him in that top 10 yet, but it's kind of one of those things like the year he got drafted, where there's 2 boxes in my checklist that need to be checked off. And the second that happens, then yeah, I think he is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL. That's going to do it for this episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go Islanders. Catch you on the next one.